Okay, what does it take from simply wanting to complete the distance, wanting to finish the race, to going to break the course record? I'm going to take you through my 7-year transformation at a specific ultramarathon in Spain, 50 kilometers uphill. It's a journey filled with a lot of failure and triumph, but everything in between. So if you've ever dreamed of achieving something big but felt overwhelmed by the setbacks, this story is for you. But why should you listen to me? Hopefully by the end of this video, you figure out that reason, because I went from not being able to run 400 meters to being able to line up for a 5 kilometer and 10 kilometer and race them, to being able to run 50 kilometers in just 8 months and then getting the bug. And you all know what that feels like. I went for my first run on January the 3rd, 2010, and it was horrible. After 400 meters, I had to stop and I walked home, but the running bug had bitten me. And over the next 2 months, I learned how to run non-stop for 5K. Then I went to my local park runs and I did okay. Then I signed up for the Manchester 10K, the Bupa Manchester 10K, and ran that in just under 40 minutes. So there was some natural ability there, but I was so proud of the result. I got this race finish, marathon photo finish, as you do. And I was so proud of my physique, was much more runner-like, that I posted it to Facebook. And then a friend in Spain said, why don't you come and do the 50K uphill ultramarathon in August? So in the heat of Spain, in the heat of August, 50 kilometers uphill, it blew my mind because I didn't know ultramarathons existed. I just thought it went up to marathon. And so of course I accepted the challenge and knew that heat was going to play a factor. It gets up to 45 degrees. The medium and high altitude, the wind at the top, all the other factors were going to play a factor. But I knew that even though I was living in Sweden and it was pancake flat, the only thing I could do was get on the treadmill, put it on an incline, and gradually get used to the average gradient for the race, 6.5%, get used to 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then an hour and a half. And my only goal was to finish under the cutoff time, which was 8 hours. And all I knew about that 8 hours was 50 kilometers, uphill 6.5%, 8 hours, I cannot walk the whole thing. So if I can just get to halfway, 25K, and then start to run walk, I should be able to come in less than the cutoff time. And I had no idea what I was going to come up against in Spain. In terms of the heat and stuff like that, I had an idea. I'd been on holiday before, but I had no idea. But the bigger thing that I had no expectation of was how much this race was going to change my life. And this, for me, is the big thing for you. If you've got a really big goal in mind and it's a long-term goal, like in 5 years, I want to run a sub 3, even though I cannot break 5 hours at the moment, go for it. Because even if it's the wildest dream that everybody else laughs at you, the journey that you will go on in order to get there, even if you fail by 10% or 20%, you've still succeeded because you had the balls to get on that journey and go for it and have your hat in the ring. And so I got to Granada a couple of days before. We drove the course, which seemed to last forever, twists and turns, but everything about Granada and everything about the course and the mountain and everything surrounding the race, I just completely and utterly fell in love with. And my first thoughts were, how can I move to this city and how can I make this my life? And then the race started, and it starts in the dark. It starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's a good enough temperature. It's like 20, 22 degrees. Feels quite fresh for a lot of people, but it's the energy that I got from those ultramarathon runners, and you're looking around you at different people's legs and just thinking, oh my God, I've got no chance against these guys. How am I going to do this race? I've bitten off more than I can chew. And we started. And of course, I'm new to ultramarathon running, so I'm making all the mistakes that you would do if it was your first ultramarathon. I'm going off too quick. I'm getting too excited. I'm running with faster people than I should be. And after 10K, it starts to get hard. You start to hit the bigger incline and it starts to go steep, 8-9%. And you're just working from that 10K point all the way to the summit. And I knew that if I could get to the halfway point, and I'd seen the day before that there was a petrol station at the halfway point, I knew that if I got to there, I could finish in less than 8 hours. I was making so many mistakes with nutrition, with hydration, all the mistakes you would think of making for your first ultramarathons, but I managed to finish, and I finished in 5 hours and 17 minutes. And it was a life-changing experience because I finished, and for the first time, I felt emotional about sport. I looked down at the mountain, I could see where we'd come from, I could see runners still struggling to get to the finish, and maybe it was the altitude or whatever, it changed me. And looking at the podium and seeing guys that just looked incredibly fit for purpose, like skinny upper bodies and all legs, I just thought, I just want to be like those guys. And so from that moment, and when we got back down to the ski village where you kind of have the little celebration afterwards and congratulate everybody, and there's a ceremony. And I remember saying to my friends that one day I'm going to win this race. And they laughed at me, and I just thought, I don't care if this takes me 10, 15, 20 years. One day I'm going to win this race. I'm going to be as good as those guys on the podium. It was completely delusional, because in order to win that race, I'd need to run so much faster and run under 4 hours. And it just was inconceivable to most people to even think that way. And again, that's the thing. If you can dream big, and as cheesy as that now sounds, if you dream big and you go for something but fail, it's likely that you're going to get further than if you aim safe and you overachieve. So then it became, okay, I know what the course looks like, I know what it feels like, I know what the race feels like, how can I train to get better on that course? And I still had the dream that I wanted to be in Granada and living in Granada and training on the course. But 2011, I went back with that course knowledge, and I knew how that would feel, especially in the second half, and I went 30 minutes quicker. And that was all down to consistency in the training and knowing exactly what to do in order to move myself forward in certain areas. So of course my hill running improved. I did hill running all year round, and it became a strength of mine and still is today. And that power from the glutes, the hamstrings, propelling you up, of course it makes you faster on the flat as well. I joined a running club in Sweden, and therefore my training became more methodical, because whatever they were doing every Tuesday and Thursday, I was doing also all through the winter and then into the summer. And then races are organized for you, or local races that you can get involved in, your club is involved in. So that's a big deal. If you can get involved with a local running club, you're going to get faster. So 2012, I went up another level again. I was obsessed with this race, so I was training all year round for this race. And I went all in and moved to Granada. And that was a big deal for me, because all of a sudden I'm in the environment to train hard in beautiful surroundings, on beautiful trails, but I'm also surrounded by great athletes and great mountain runners. So I'm taking that methodical approach to the next level, and I'm getting consistent with it. So 2010, I ran a marathon in 4:25. 2011, I ran a marathon in 3:25. 2012, February of 2012, I ran Seville Marathon in 2 hours 37. So I took 48 minutes off my marathon. So running was already the most serious thing I had going on. It was all consuming for me. But when you run 2:37, all of a sudden you're taken seriously by people around you. And so going into 2012, Subito a Pico Valletta, not only had I that confidence, but I also had the experience of running on the course. My intervals would be on the course, my long runs would be on the course. So I knew when to go hard and push and when to relax. I knew that it was going to get incredibly hot because I had the previous 2 years experience. And all that paid off. And I ended up running another 30 minutes quicker and coming 8th place in 4 hours from 17 minutes. And for me, the big difference there was the mindset shift of, okay, you're playing with this and you're going to be visiting that race every August, to I'm moving there and this is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, in terms of winning the race. So 2013, I'm overconfident. I'm thinking I'm on this upward trajectory, and I've come 8th. Previous year I was 24th, and then I was 39th. I've got to be on the podium this year. And so I went out too quick, overcooked it. I ended up running exactly the same time and coming in exactly the same place, but it was a way worse performance. I hadn't judged it, I haven't paced it, and you know that it's not all about the finishing time or the result. It's about how you feel from start to finish. I had a terrible race and I was capable of way more, and I just didn't let it show on the day. Then this is the thing, because 2014 I went to the race, but I was coming off an injury. I'd ran fast marathon that year, I'd run 2:24, so I had the confidence that I could do well, but I was dealing with an injury. And so I ran conservatively, and because I was forced to run conservatively, I had Achilles issues. Then I ran a good race, a much better race than the previous year, because I had much more to give in the second half, and I ended up coming 5th place. And so even though I didn't improve in that year, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot of how to pace the course. 2015, I was completely over my injury, and part of that process included strengthening the lower legs so that my Achilles, soleus, gastroc muscle was solid. And in that strengthening process, which became, went from rehabilitation to prehabilitation, all of a sudden I realized the importance of building power in the big power muscles, the glutes and hamstrings, building robust quadriceps as well as lower legs, in order to not just make yourself a better, more powerful runner, but also less injury proof. And so I went into 2015, Subida al Pico Valletta, with lots of confidence, and I really went for it, and I felt like I judged it and had a lot of things working on my side. I ended up coming 3rd and getting on the podium for the first time, and I was absolutely ecstatic. And I remember sharing the podium with the winner, was a previous winner from London Marathon, and 2nd place was Dani Alvarez, both incredible runners. And I was just ecstatic to be there, but not for the glory of getting on the podium or getting the medal. For me, it was more to do with where I'd come from in 2010, fumbling around, trying to figure it out, to all of a sudden having that breakthrough and getting on the podium. And so 2016, after coming 3rd in 2015, together with the wins locally and also internationally, all of a sudden I was the favorite. And going into that, there was no pressure for me. It was just my natural progression, and I really wanted to win that race. And it's fair to say that the obvious mistake that I made was doing more of absolutely everything that had previously worked the year before. Whereas if I would have just done exactly the same and continued to be patient with my progress, I would have won that year. What I ended up doing was too much weight training. Too much cycling, massive amounts of volume on the bike, massive amounts of volume running, too much fast work, too much of a long run. I just wanted to leave no stone left unturned, but I overdid it. And so I got to 43K in the race and I was dead. I had nothing left. I was dizzy, and for the first time, I called it a day, and I got a DNF for the first time. My favorite race in the world, and still to this day, I regret it. But I didn't feel as if I could move forward. And when you watch and everything moving away from you, the course record that I was going from, the victory, seeing 2nd place pass you, then 3rd place, then 4th place, you just die inside. And I've had that happen to me, and I've made that happen to other people. It's not a great feeling, but what it will do is light a fire inside of you that if you react well to that fire, you're literally gonna take off. And 2017 was just my year. Everything came to plan. And I remember being on the start line and being so focused, so in the zone, that I didn't even want to speak to anybody. I didn't want to get out of my blinkered approach to this race where I didn't want to do what I'd done the previous year. I didn't want to quit. And the very next day after I quit, I started to train. Ironically, given that I'd overtrained for that race, I started to train with the focus that 2017, I want to win this race. Earlier in the year, I'd had successes at London Marathon and run 2 hours 21, and I'd had successes in the 100K as well. So I had good results behind me. I knew I was doing well. And at that stage, it's about staying out of trouble and just riding that wave of consistency, riding that wave of being physically fit, in shape, and just knowing when to peak, when to back off, when to do not so much that you're gonna overdo it. And when I set off in 2017, I just led the race from start to finish. I had my cyclist next to me the entire time. We've said very, very few words between us, and it was all about executing. It was all about the win. And I crossed the line 5 minutes faster than anybody had ever ran the race. And I ran 3 hours, 45 minutes. So that's 1 hour and 32 minutes faster than my first time, 2010. I had gone through this story of 2010, 2011, all the way up to 2017 with all the failures behind me. And that was my dream. That was my Olympic gold medal, and I made it happen. And the funny thing is I remember being on top of the mountain and people are coming over congratulating you. It's a big thing for the people in Granada and the people in Andalusia. And so you got the newspapers there, the journalists, etc. immediately there's euphoria initially, but then very, very quickly you realize that the goal that you've been aiming at for years, and the goal that's been in mind a lot of the time during those years, is actually a disappointment of how grand it is in that moment. And very quickly you realize that it's actually the pursuit. Of course it's the pursuit that is the magic. That's what is really beautiful. The finished result is just you executing on everything that you've been working towards the last 7 years. And so what I imagined was going to be an after party, this huge celebration, all of Granada involved, was actually me sat in Cenis, about 4 kilometers from Granada Center, in this small village, having a pizza on my own that night, thinking, I've just made all my dreams come true. And whether it's your marathon time, your 100K time like it was for me, winning the British Championships or winning your favorite races like that and maybe Passatori and some others, you realize that it's never about the result, it's always about the journey. And in those years that I've just talked to you about, the years that I'm most proud about now are the years where it didn't go to plan. 2013, 2014, 2015, definitely 2016, where it's not gone to plan, but you still got through it somehow. 2016, obviously I dropped out, but immediately the day after, I was so hungry, I really wanted it. I thought nobody's gonna be able to beat me next year. But those years when you're battling with injury, when you're battling with, you just mispaced it and you've got to find something within you. You've all felt that maybe within a marathon or a half marathon or an ultra marathon where you just don't feel you can go on. There's been so many moments like that where you figure out who you really are and how much you really want it. And for me, that is the most important part of the entire 7 years, not winning. When everything is going to plan and when you figured out all the stages that you need to figure out in order for you to win, and it goes to plan, you've got the right energy and you're feeling good, you've had great sleep, all the training programs gone to plan, and then you execute, that's the easy part. It's actually getting up after failing. And for me, that's the definition of success. It's not when all the stars aligned, you happen to perform amazing. It's being as enthusiastic on that 100th try as you were on the first and second try, despite 99 failures. And so if you felt overwhelmed or you keep getting rejected or you keep getting knocked back and you keep failing, remember that it's the journey that is the reward, not the destination. And it's the keep getting up with the same level of energy and enthusiasm that is success.